Seems that what blows better like. But there's only those play leading to nice. When they want secret. Yeah. There's a mistake. So this weakens the spot. Now it's not. Things. That's true. That's crazy actually. Okay.
Okay, hmm, so let's go to the current position. Why is it a mischance? Okay, so knight d2 is a mistake. So the computer rather wants to put pressure on a4. If queen a1 and maybe queen a2, then rook a1. And knight d2, e7, knight g4 was better. I think even rook a6 was but I think the sole reason is that rook a7 in some lines can be attacked from bishop e3, I think. Yeah, but okay, a7, rook a2, knight d6. Bishop back to d1, knight d7. So this is the current position. Queen c2. Okay, but it's going to be a tough one. Hmm. Like there are a lot of lines. So first of all, these pawns are completely demobilized, right? Like this is not possible as now. So something like this completely loses the yeah. So the computer basically wants rook f8, but yes, of course, knight d5 is also knight d5, and then So 9 minutes for Mark and 25 for Hikaru. Time is going to play a big advantage here. Yeah, of course. So let's see the line. 95, and then, well, this basically is trying to somehow put pressure, and then there are a lot of lines. So basically, the best asset for black is that, okay, so these pawns are basically something that black is relying on. So of course, pushing this is an idea at some moment, clear up the path, but okay, this is not possible, not yet. Mark is still thinking, but okay, what if 95? The idea here is simply 24 centralizing the queen, and of course, in this particular moment, there are a lot of key ideas for black. But okay, computer working 67, but I think this is possible now, right? Because you can play a3, because after e3, if you were to take the pawn, this is losing now. You cannot take the pawn like this. Even if you want to take it like this is okay. But if you take it with the pawn, then it's particularly losing. That being said, the move here that loses the game on the spot is, of course, as you can see, the fault. Now, since you cannot take the pawn, which is very basic here, as we can see, taking with this and then it stays. But this pawn is still kind of hanging. So yeah, you clear up the air here, but you still have something to worry about. And this pawn is very too much. It's like 3 steps away from winning. So yeah. Okay, so we have a few moves here and rook a1. So 93 played, of course, attacking rook. The rook moves to safety. Now pressure on this pawn. Can't really save this pawn, and Hikaru's probably going to take this because uh, the best you can do is basically push it. That's the best try. And other moves also lose on the spot here because now it's just too strong. This is just too strong here. Yeah. Okay, so there are not many moves for black here actually. Like even after a3, now if you take this, this is still pretty much winning. Yes, this is not the best move, but yeah, it is pretty much winning even after rook takes a3 because now you're up a pawn and you have a 2v1 majority on the queen side, and yeah, these pieces are also very active. You know, bishop takes and then 94 ideas like that. Yeah, so I don't think black's best try is still a3 maybe, but I don't see a plan for black. Is there any practical try that we might have? Okay, so black goes 95. Okay, now Of course, in this particular moment, you are not really going to take this pawn because after rook takes a4, rook takes a4, and then rook takes a4, there is knight takes b2, right? Basically, this, and then there is this crazy move, and this basically makes it all equal. So yeah, this is not possible. So the only winning move here is the crazy knight takes c4, skewing the bishop. Basically, the bishop basically skews all the knights and the queen, and it looks through the queen, through the knights, and two of them. Now, if we take this, bishop takes d3, and it's the same thing, but white is now up a pawn, and again, a 2v1 majority has been restored. So the only winning move, knight takes c4, and I think it's not really a problem for Hikaru to find this move. And he still has like 23 minutes on the clock. It's not going to be tough for him to find this. So, so, so knight takes c4, the only move to win, and the only move to keep an advantage actually. So knight takes c4, the only move. I think I think Hikaru is going to find it. I think Hikaru will find it. Okay, so he has 22 minutes. And he is taking his time. So that means he's actually calculating this, and is there some other line he's worried about? Because okay, he did play. Okay, I didn't see that. Yeah. Yeah. Now this is fairly easy. Okay, so knight takes f2 is a good try, but of course nothing works if king takes f2 even. Then now we have this problem at hand. So he took the pawn, left took the pawn. The idea being that if you take king takes f2, you cannot capture this, of course, because of bishop captures, but you give this check, king goes to g3, and now you go to f8, trying to target the square. But none of this works. That's the problem here. But yes, if you rather try to block it like that might be a problem. That almost brings it back to equality. Because this, and now the entire problem is that this knight is dependent on this bishop. And a move like h6 simply brings the entire game back to equality. So you cannot move back. So this would be a better. So king takes up to plate. It seems nice. Again, let's okay, plate queen c5, and now the moves to stay in the game are king e1 and king. Let's see what he does. So after king e1, we again have the same idea, rook and targeting this f2 square. Okay, now to place king g3. The best move in the position, of course. Of course, he finds it. That's expected. And now, instead of rook f8, uh, the idea remains the same, but you rather do this. So I guess this was not doing not much of a job here. So yeah, this could be a variation here. And yeah, again, the two top moves are basically king h2 and king h3, trying to escape. Queen d2 also works, but if you make a casual move, let's say, so I would win this square using bishop e3 or something like this. I seem to see this drop about tremendous, and this is because now you're given simply chance to double up, and this is almost back to you. This is almost back to you, which is so yeah, it's not so easy. What is it? Look at it play. Look f7 was a better try according to the filter, but I don't see a difference. Look at it there. Idea remains the same. You develop. Okay, so this has been quite interesting. And Mark is putting up such a great fight, and I should say actually. And again, Hikaru going to these tournaments, and playing his low-rated players. Well, of course, he's just not trying to win Elo or gain any kind of Elo here, but he's trying to win 11 games so that he can qualify for the candidates. And he would be happy to even have zero Elo playing at the end of all of it. He doesn't want any. But in some capacity, this seems like unfair to the players. But then again, a very great chance that they may not have played Hikaru ever again. They wouldn't get a chance if Hikaru does to themselves. Yeah. So, yeah, this is a great opportunity for everyone. Okay, 24. Let's move. After PC7, check and king h2. We don't really have much left here. It's collapsing. This pawn is hanging. Cannot defend it. If you were to do something like this, slowly things collapse because knight d6 and you cannot keep guarding the pawns with the pawn falls. So let's nothing played after queen e4. Yeah, this is really move right. Centralize the queen with after weakness. And now it's probably time that these fools. You can even take the pawn and come back from this way. This is too much pressure on the black position. Even though right now it seems that there are a lot of pieces for black left, but count carefully, of course, black is simply a piece down. And although the queen and the rooks are on open fast, they're active, they have open diagonals, but still it's not enough. It's simply not. Because when as soon as e6 falls, king h8, uh, the knight becomes loose, and then the entire position simply collapses. Yeah, so not much to do here. Another victory for Hikaru. Yeah, but Mark has put up a great fight. Kudos to him. Let's just go over the game once again. Okay, when you do castles, bishop g4, h3 stays. And now knight back, queen back. c5 was a critical mistake because, well, of course, first of all, this is putting another pawn on the dark square, and even this is not the problem here. The problem was letting Hikaru play d5, simply restricting the movement and the development of this knight. Because this knight who wants to go to c6, but it can't. I think there is a so yeah, I think after this position where we joined in, almost everything is almost over because and after queen b5, yeah, only move kind of keeping the game would have been e5, trying to restrict this knight, making space for the queen, maybe some jumping ideas, but no, that wasn't really possible. But yeah, after queen b5 and okay, queen b1 is a missed chance by the engine, but I don't really trust the engine here right here. It's a very direct drive. A few moves, it simply wasn't enough. So yeah, bishop d1, knight on 7, and finally queen c2. Yeah. And after this, and then we had knight takes c4. Hikaru founded it down, and of course you cannot play. That simply loses. So black try to get something back, but he's the gave away a piece. Takes, queen c5, king g3, rook h8, and then queen e4. And now check, king h2. Now there's simply nothing to be done here. This is just a consolation check. You don't really have much, so like knight f4, nothing is to be done here. You don't really have the firepower to continue the attack. Even if this rook is not in the game and you don't have time here. The time is of essence, and of course, it would take still 2 moves to get this rook into the game, which white is not going to provide. Because this, after whatever black plays, white really plans to take this pawn. Okay, so yes, it's kind of defends it, but not really, because as you can see, it walks directly into this line of sight of the bishop. And we already explained why this doesn't work because of 96. And now this is just the right. The rook has to turn. So rook f1 played actually, and knight f4 was played. Oh, okay, mark resigns. Mark resigns the game. Okay, so that was expected, and another win for Hikaru. So now let's have a good look at the game. Okay, so I can see the accuracy. I don't think you can. There is an 89% accuracy for Hikaru and 82.8 for Mark. Let's just go over the game now again. This time one move by move. So e4, g6, b4, bishop g7, knight f3, g6, bishop c4. Pretty standard. So of course queen e2. So yeah, most of us would also play knight c3 here, which is completely natural and it's a very nice move. But Hikaru has a system of his own. So queen e2 is again a very popular move. Queen e2 and castles, and now bishop g4. So bishop g4 wins the knight. So of course, your first instinct is to keep out the bishop. And now, more often than not, we hear that we should not give away bishops for knights. But yeah, in this case, we should. So this is the only move. Otherwise, black's that bit passive after this. So yeah, takes, and then 97. Now queen d1, and now c5 is a mistake. We talked about c5 because it's not about taking the pawn, it's about restricting the development of this knight. So d5, and now d5 controls this important squares. It also controls this pawn break, because now you cannot play this anymore, and your queen is already kind of passive. You can try to do some a6 b5 stuff, but yeah, that is not possible because of a4 stopping it. So yeah, and now this knight is kind of restricted. So instead of c5, a better flag would have been d5. This allows this. And now after d5, you can at least play c6 trying to attack, right? This kind of keeps the game in balance still. But yeah, okay, so c5, d5. Okay, so knight develops here, 96. And now again, you do not really take this. You can do this, but yeah, there's just no reason to give away the life separation, right? Okay, c3. So to the knight, so that the knight cannot move forward. Knight goes back, of course. Knight c7, and now e4, stopping b4 because knight c7 supports the b4 break. Now a6, trying to reinforce the b4 break. Now, of course, once e6 is played, it makes sense that you flip the pawn to e5. This is the only way to stop the b5, because now it's b5 en passant, and that is the the only move on the position. So yeah, b5 was not. Then knight takes 6. We should take 3. And now again, once the bishop moves, black realizes that okay, I do not really have the clamp on this position now, and I can now play e6, and probably now this break is in good one. But no, it's a mistake. First of all, this pawn becomes a lifetime target because once this pawn can really be attacked, and we also have a task with bishop, we have a queen, we have 2 rooks, we have knights, and everything. And this is the lifetime weakness. If you look closely in white's position, white does not have such a pawn. So yeah, that really is the positional disconfiguration of the queen. Takes bishop e3, queen e7, d2, and now d5. d5 is a nice move, and the thing is, now if you take d5, and after take and keep on trying to line up this, look, you don't need to save the bishop because this simply is met by this, and now after a couple of moves, you can simply play something like h4, targeting the pawn, with a fade, and now this pawn falls. So yeah, you do not really have much of a chance here trying to survive if you play that. So d5, knight f3, then a5. Now rook e1, the idea remains the same. You line up the rook with the queen. Now you are actually looking to take, kind of looking to take, and that opens up this. And there are many opportunities that can be handled here. Okay, a4 takes, and the bishop moves, of course, opening up this, and this pawn right here, as we saw at the end of the game, was basically the only weakness that black had, which he could not defend. And this pawn would have fallen sooner or later, and it did. Okay, he resigned before this, but yeah, this pawn, once it became an isolated pawn, there was no saving it. It was f7, took a3, c4. c4, of course, supported by the knight, bishop c2, queen back. You get bishop e2 because it does not want a queen trade. Now we'll have e8, and now this move h4. Okay, what does h4 do? So the idea behind h4 is first of all to stop any g5 by. So black can now no longer do h6 g5. And another idea of g5 is simply to push g4 to destabilize this knight. Once you have g4, you can clamp in h5 and you have a lock-in. So yeah, he immediately start. Now, queen b5, as I said, better start would have been e4 because really needed to stop these kind of moves. But okay, queen b1. To be noted that here h5 is something that the engine prefers a lot. Well, of course, it gives up a pawn, but giving up this pawn opens up a lot of scope here. So first of all, you can jump right into the center, or now you can play queen b1, and now this is it's very powerful actually. So you cannot really defend it knight f6, and then stop trying to defend this, but it's hard. But that didn't happen. Queen b1, knight f6. Now like trying to treat that, and then reinforcing the knight, also centralizing it from b6. And after a couple of moves, it wasn't really good because after bishop e2, which was kind of a mistake, which was tried to force to prove the queen moves, 93, and then rook e1. At this point, the game was kind of over, and now 95, and now the best move of the game, apparently, knight takes c4, the brilliant move. And we had discussed this is just bad. This is just bad. You can do anything, but everything falls apart at this point. So, yes, Of course, the number of pieces is same, but you can see these 2 pawns, these are going to roll up the board and no one can stop them. So yeah, that is pretty bad. Right, it's c4. Knight takes f2 played here, and it was a practical try to at least gain some counterplay, open up the king, some dangles for the queen. So yeah, king takes f2, queen c5, king g3, only move, by the way. The moves were not so good, and some of the moves also lead to lines where a draw was feasible for lines. Okay, took a fade, and we talked about this. Took f7 was better, but I honestly have no idea why. But yeah, okay. Queen e4, and then this check practically does nothing, but that's the only move kind of black has. And now, of course, go queen h2, king h2, or king h3. You do not go king g4. Of course, once you go king g4, there's a nasty move. Do you know that move? What happens if you go king g4? No, it is not h5. That is not h5. Because h5 simply allows the king to go back. That is what you want to stop. So if you play knight f4, this stops the king to go back. And now, yes, of course, you can do bishop takes f4, but now it takes f4. And okay, queen takes f4. Now you do not take back the king. Here, queen g3. And now the check you will so be waiting for. And of course, now bishop h6 and the game is over. So you have to give away the queen, or you have to get away from the defense of the queen. And that's the end of it. So yeah, that is something that white had to keep in mind. But of course, the part was a call for them. Okay, rook f1. Black resign because there's nothing more to be done. And the queen can escape, but it doesn't really matter anymore because the knight is also falling. So yeah, that marks an end to the game. So yeah, it was quite a nice game. Um, a lot of tactics involved, some mistakes, a brilliant move. I don't think. Uh, but looking at it, I see the entire game was kind of black playing defensively. And I don't blame him for that because you see that when you go up against a super GM and you may not have made probably any super GM ever, and now that Hikaru shows up at your local club, uh, that that could be quite intimidating, and you may not be performing as you should. So yeah, that is something that also affects your performance. It's kudos to Mark for holding off Hikaru for 40 moves, which is not an easy feat for someone who is 500 for rating points lower than you. So yeah, 2300 holding a 2800 almost. He missed quite a few chances. Even up to this point, it was not really bad because here he had to play apparently the only move is basically knight g4. But what is the idea of knight g4? This is the point where black went wrong. Black basically played this, but no, he had to play knight g4. So knight g4 is designed, first of all, to target the f2 pawn and do that same idea. But now, if you play something like this doesn't work because of queen c5. And okay, you can play this, but this basically now gives a lot of room. Because okay, first of all, you cannot get this bishop back, right? And now, if you want to make space of this first attack the queen, and then you want to get the bishop back completely, that is not possible because knight takes e4. And once you have knight takes e3, you cannot really defend the entire position, and it's completely in favor of black. Because after this entire exchange, you see that your bishop, which was on g4, is still hanging, right? So this, and now you kind of have a decision, right? Because black is up a piece right now. So if you take this, I take this, and you know what? Yes, this is a move. The root of us says you give this check because king h1. Now you take, and of course this is useless because a lot of threats are here. Because okay, if you were to take this, it is almost over because of queen f7, this and this. It's very simple actually. Queen f2, queen g3, queen h2. That's it. How do you stop it? I mean, there are ideas like king g7 and triple check, right? So everything is falling apart. So yeah, there were chances. So knight e2 was a mistake, but rook a7 is a counter mistake. And now, after this point, I don't think, yeah, this was another critical point. Like when here, computer suggests so black played this, and 95, easy 2. Here, was a mistake. The mistake apparently was trying to force the rook into a position where he wants to go anyway. So 93 kind of makes it easy to go rook ea1, which white wants to go anyway. So you're kind of helping him. So 93 is not good here, which is why again this entire idea is again good. So yeah, knight g4 right now does not directly work because of queen e4, but you can start with rook f8. And once you start with rook f8, and now you kind of try to do the same idea. So rook e1. Now we rather have this idea and this idea. So 95, to takes a4, takes a4, takes a4. And now this 93 move is useful, right? Because now you not really have established a nice knight in the opponent's half, and now it's not helping another piece to go to a square that she wants to go anywhere, which was the case previously, right? So yeah, so a lot of nuances and a lot of minor tactics. This was a position where black went wrong for the final time, and there's nothing else to be done because after this brilliant knight takes c4, nothing else would have been done. Queen takes c2, and as we discussed, almost everything falls apart. Yeah. So it really summarizes the game. So I think Hikaru was at 3.5 out of 4. So we drew again Mike Ivana, which is crazy. Can we look at the game? Yeah, so this was a draw. Oh my god. And he lost 4 points for this. Something more maybe. Okay. Let's try to look at it from Hikaru's perspective. So Mike Ivanov at 2366 IM draws Hikaru. This is some news. Okay, so standard. So he immediately goes for this. Fine. Okay, e5. And this is all book moves, by the way. This is theory. Takes. Now again, when you do this, this only helps you. So this helps black because after knight takes c3 and say take with this, you can do that. And he takes f6. This is only helping black. He played d4, bishop 7, castle, stuff like that. And even these kind of positions. So of course after this you take and you take this. Now knight d5, h5, 6 4 1. Nice. Okay, now d6 important move. Bishop 4 protecting, bishop 5. Okay, targeting the b7 pawn. The pawn is loose here. Bishop takes c4. Now we are in a zone where, okay, so this was the first mistake of the game. And the paper suggests queen takes d5, queen takes d5, pawn takes d5. Now f4 blade, g takes f4, passes. So for anyone who is watching, afterwards and is confused why these kind of moves are something you have to be careful in chess. So this particular example is not really the great example, but yeah, it showcases what I want to show here. That you always not immediately need to recapture this if you can capture it later. So as you can see, this pawn cannot be defended in any other way. It cannot be defended by the bishop, not in this way, not in that way. The rook needs two moves to defend it. There is no pawn here which can defend it, which means you can take this. Why not castle first? And maybe take it with the rook. And then double up. Because black does not have a light square. So yeah, you can target that 7 pawn. So take streaks and now rook g6, c3, bishop g7, f5, e6, now bishop e3. So c5 is hanging. So how do you want to defend? So yeah, one idea is to of course push it, right? But the thing is, this pawn becomes extremely weak, and the bishop is extremely active as well. Yeah, both of you have the darks with bishops, but still. So rook c8 is a better try, and that is now 7. So simply rook c7. So you see why this is important, because now it is defended twice, that twice, so everything is fine. Okay, so look back. So yeah, see, now this pawn is attacked. So instead of now again defending this, even this would have been a good move. But of course, do not do that. What you rather do is this. Take this, and now move the rook takes d5. Okay. Now, this was the entire point. This was the entire point, right? Because you've seen something like this. These are very basic tactical motives. So this is a discovered attack. So check, you see this, and this has to be done. Now, after this point, the plays resign. Hikaru had 1 hour, 3 minutes, and 18 seconds, and Mike Ivanov had 8 minutes and 49 seconds. And I'm a bit curious. Why was it a draw again? I don't see. Okay, but looking at the time situation, Hikaru could have easily pushed for a win. No? Doesn't seem like magician could. I don't know. Maybe there was something else at play here, but he could have easily played on. And if anyone has to win here, it would have been glad. So yeah, this entire game was okay. Let me just see the game of Hikaru. Yeah, let's see this game. So this was currently round two against a player from Canada, Titan Kidai. Okay, so he's 1808, so almost 1,000 points lower. So e5, bishop c4, something he plays a lot of blitz, d3, c6, f3, d5, bishop b3, 6, castles, knight c3, takes, or takes, h6. So h6 simply stops this. But again, it's a good move because you're simply making lock for the king. So that goes here. So yeah, as you see, he's happy with this. He is happy with this. And he is not really worrying about his dad's death bishop because he wants to open up the rook here. But he takes the knight instead. I do think taking the bishop would have been better. First of all, yeah, even though it opens the way, right now no longer has the bishop pair. Black has a bishop pair. Shouldn't be too bad, right? Bishop e6. The game continues. Okay, but knight takes, move takes, and now bishop c5. This is start of something bad because again, as I said, tactical motives are very important. You see this bishop, you see this king, do you see this? Right. And now this bishop is moved here. So what if I take bishop takes f7? Because after bishop takes f7, doesn't matter what you do. Because if rook takes f7, you hang your queen in one. You could say that's game over. And if you take with the king, then we know this. Yeah, you can develop your so it's fine. I've got my piece back and with interest. Ultimately, if you move here or here, let's say here, so you simply have lost a pawn. Just don't come back on this. Then simply come back maybe. Uh, oh no, you cannot do that. You have to take it first because this F2 is hanging right here. I think stuff like this. Bishop e3. And yeah, you simply have a pawn. Yeah. So yeah, this was a mistake. Bishop f7. B8 happened. It's bishop. Oh, all of this happened. Okay. Defense. F3. Bishop off. King f1. Trades. Now, so this. So the king now covers all the entrance squares. Yeah. And it was not really very hard for him to convert an endgame. Yeah. It was pretty easy. Piece of cake. And he had like 1 hour and 2 minutes title. So yeah. I don't think he spent his time wisely here, but yeah, I guess inevitable ending. This was quite a match actually. So yeah, he is up by a lot. He's up by a lot. Yeah, so anyone who's watching this afterwards, hope you enjoy the commentary, and then we will be back for the next round as well. Let's see how it goes. So Hikaru is currently 3.5 out of 4. And as we just saw, miraculous draw, a draw that shouldn't have happened, but it had happened. I still have no idea why that was the case. There shouldn't have been a draw. So he made that draw. Maybe there was something I'm missing. So probably the Black had like 8 minutes left. Hikaru had 1 hour left, and there might be something in the event that might have gone wrong or something like that. So probably decided to make the draw because I don't see him making a draw with 1 hour and his opponent having 8 minutes. If his opponent was late, a lot of things could have happened. So it makes sense. Okay, so we won understand this time. And this was the so you can see this was the game where Hikaru himself was very impressed with Michelle, but she picked up a great fight against her. So let's just leave this not stream and we can end stream. Okay. So you see, E4 C5, let's stream. Exchange 6, 7, knight B3, castles E4. And now this was very important because now his idea is very simple. So if that white makes random moves, white really wants to come here. That is what white wants to do. So yeah, it's back. Now B6. Now B2 would be a mistake. It would first of all open up the diagonal. Queen would be very active. So what you should rather do is develop like this. So you outspread bishop was not active, and now it can protect this square. So knight f3, now bishop e3 to protect some panes, and now bishop e3. So yeah, these double pawns for now they are no good for white. Yeah. After some movement, you can even take one of them. So yeah, pressure could be built up here. But right now they are of no use because you can play this, PC this that, but I'll just move back. So I don't really see issue here. Okay, bishop f2, f6, takes, and after this entire sequence of moves, after the queen trade, these two pawns now are something that black is depending on because now you can trade them. You put the rooks develop the file and you try to do this, and now this entire thing, and now it's the same square bishop, right? So if you develop on the b file, you push the a pawn, and the a pawn is not really able to take back because you have a lot of pressure here. And meanwhile, you can also play bishop s6 and trade them with light square bishops. So yeah, there's a lot of scope. So you see bishop 7, rook c8. Now the important thing is since rook c8 has been played, this rook cannot move from its back rank because if it does, so again, let's make random moves like this. Sorry, I just made a good random move. I wanted to make this move. Now this pawn falls, right? This pawn kind of falls. That is what I want to show that this is not possible. But yeah, king f7, defending the pawn. Okay, okay, and bishop c8. So bishop c8 is made so that now this rook is a bit more flexible because this rook was stuck defending this pawn, which was attacked twice. And now bishop c8 basically defends both of these pawns and acts as a shield. Granted that it's a passive bishop, but later on it might put us on top of the game. So yeah, this does that. Mistakes, king is in good mode. 54 is mistake. Okay, king c7, bishop 2, bishop e8. And now once you have c4, you kind of see the point here. Okay, c4 removes the clamp from this position as well. So takes, and now the pawn rolls off the board. And now it's just a matter of time because, as you can see, first of all, Michelle 4 minutes here on the clock. Black is already a bit better because, first of all, as a pawn, which is central pawn, it's not easy to take this pawn. And white has a majority on this white side, but white is slow because what black would try to do is trade this pawn for this pawn and then be left with single parcel. That's exactly what he is trying to do. You can see, as you see, this a6 move kind of stops both these pawns, right? And now f5, 7, check, and yeah, and it collapses pretty quickly. Nothing more is left. So, again, it's very important that if this pawn is gone from the board, it is going to be a draw. If this pawn is gone from them, because rook and a bishop versus a rook would be a draw. Okay. So that has to be kept in mind. And now that marks an end, and we shall resign. So that was a pretty interesting game, and that being said, okay, so let's end the stream here, and probably we'll meet again next stream. And if you guys could like the stream, it would be very nice. Thank you.